Get some nice intro.
Welcome again to the Two Joes podcast. Coming at you from the Salt Lake Valley, late on a Sunday evening. I've got MoJoe on the line with his dear niece.
Dear niece. That's right, yeah. This one is a little bit later. Welcome, dear niece. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing great. You know, just staying home. I didn't. This is one of those days I didn't even, it's Sunday, so I didn't even have to exit the house to check my mailbox. I have not left the confines of my house once today.
Wait a second, though. The tulips are coming up and the daffodils are blooming. It's time for yard work, dude.
No, you're right. You're right. But, hey, man, we got COVID-19 out there. I'm not going to go risk infecting any tulips, you know?
What was your excuse last year?
Last year, let's see. Last year I was living in Vegas.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and, so I've always got an excuse. You know that. In fact, I want to suggest a name for my dear niece. Instead of calling her dear niece, what do you think we call her CoJoe for COVID-19 Joe? CoJoe.
Oh, my
I don't know. She may not like that. I don't know.
Well, let's try it for tonight. See if it grows on her. What do you think, Niece?
I'm sure that works.
All right, CoJoe it is. Well, would you mind giving us a quick update for our audience? How you feeling? Any changes? Are you feeling better or worse? About the same?
I've been feeling better. I was able to get up and do some chores around the house today, which is nice because they've been piling up for the past couple weeks. That being said, I've been very out of breath doing them, and I'm very tired now that it's nighttime. Kind of knocked quite a few off the list. I'm very tired.
I hear you.
Other than that, I think I'm on the mend. I think I'm feeling better than I have in past days, so that's good.
And once again, no breathing problems or coughing fits or anything like that? Nothing in your lungs?
I've been feeling kind of winded, but no coughing or anything like that, so I think I'm okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And, the little research I've done, Joe, I don't know if you've heard the same, but that's what's really killing the majority of the victims is they develop pneumonia and they essentially drown in their own lungs. And they just got a horrible cough and can't breathe. They're on ventilators. That's the main concern. You've heard the same?
I have not heard the part about the horrible cough, just the shortness of breath. That's the main concern. Mm-hmm. If your shortness of breath gets any worse, I would get my butt to a hospital. Yeah,
absolutely. But I saw a clip on YouTube. Some doctor, I'm not sure what type of doctor, the one that performs autopsies, and they said pretty much
coroner,
I guess, or a pathologist, or something.
Yeah, something.
And they say that when they get into the lungs and look around in there, that on the most severe, well, of course, the fatal cases, then this COVID-19 essentially just it's like a paste in the lungs, and it just attaches to the walls, and it stops your what do you call them, the cilia or something. It just doesn't allow oxygen to enter your bloodstream. You just sit there and suffocate. Oxygen can enter your lungs, but this COVID, in the horrible cases, it just doesn't allow it to go any further. It stops right there. And it sounds actually kind of similar to asthma. I've heard asthma described that way too. You can make air enter your lungs, but the airways where it goes from there are constricted off, and it just doesn't go any further. And you feel like you're taking deep breaths, and you feel like you're suffocating because nothing's getting through to your bloodstream. So I'm very glad to hear you haven't had any cases like that, and it doesn't sound from what research you've done that they told you that you're through the bad part now. That you shouldn't expect to suddenly develop severe breathing problems or anything. Is this what you've heard?
Yeah, I was. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, is this what you've heard, CoJoe?
Gosh. Yeah, as far as I know, I'm through the thick of it. I'm not expecting to take a turn and get, more symptomatic again. And I think as of Friday, I am no longer considered an infectious person by the county, which is a great feeling.
That's nice, yeah. So how much longer are you going to stay in, though, just to be on the safe side? I mean, if they're telling you you're free to roam, then, you can take that to the bank, but you want to be extra careful. But how much longer are you going to stay in?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stay in at least until next Friday. By then, I'm hoping I'm not going to have any more residual symptoms. Maybe the fatigue will be gone by then. But I'm looking until about Friday. If I'm still having some symptoms, it'll definitely be extended.
Okay. So I've got another question for you, but MoJoe, I'm dominating here. Do you have a question for CoJoe?
Not at the moment. Feel free.
So my question then is, have they given you some kind of assurance that you are immune now? Not only you won't spread it to anybody else, but you are immune from contracting it and feeling further symptoms. You won't become infected again. Have they confirmed this with you, assured you of this?
No one confirmed it with me. I have been looking into some of the research, and I think I'll be immune to it. I think that's kind of the silver lining. I'm not entirely positive, though, and I'm not sure that the medical field is entirely positive yet. Of course, I could be wrong. Maybe they know for a fact, but I think I'll be immune, which will be nice. I won't have to worry about it.
That will be nice, yeah, and you won't be able to spread it to anybody, too. So
yeah, for sure.
And I'm guessing that that's the way that we're going to, MoJoe, you and I talked about this probably a week or two ago, is how do we know the terminus? How do we know when it's safe for the sports bars to open up again and the libraries and schools and everything? And I think we're going to just start seeing many more cases like CoJoe, where they've had it, they've recovered, now they're immune and they can't. And that we're going to see that it's going to be a little trickle at first, and then it's going to be a tidal wave of good news. And I suspect, I certainly don't know, but I suspect that's how we're going to see through to the other side of this.
Well, I suspect it's going to be when we see that curve flattening, or at least going the other direction, coming down, which just isn't happening yet. It's still going up. It's still going up. South Korea, on the other hand, a lot of people are heaping praise on and saying they flattened the curve. They were effective at quarantining and testing, and they just did a phenomenal job. So I believe they're pretty close to getting things back to normal in their country. I'm not, 100% positive on that.
Well, I think I must echo what you said. I think I saw a headline saying they've lifted some travel restrictions in South Korea. And also, I think I remember another headline from this morning saying that New York saw its first decrease in daily. Its first decrease in the number of people who died in the last 24-hour period.
That's very good news. Very good news.
That is great news. I mean, it wasn't a dramatic. It wasn't a dramatic decrease. I mean, I think. It was going up and up and up. It was like 50 and then 150 and then 300 and then 600. So I think the numbers I saw this morning is like the previous 24 hours, they're like 790 deaths. And then the last 24 hours, that went down to like 650. So let's I'm going to be glued to the internet tomorrow morning to see if that has again gone down. That would just be great news.
Yeah, if we're trending in the downward direction, that'd be phenomenal.
Yeah. So let's see. I think that it pretty much exhausted my questions. Let's see. Oh yeah, CoJoe, did you share with your mom that we made a podcast about your experience and everything?
Yes, she has sent it to everyone in her contact list.
Wow. I've got to check our number. I've got to check our numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Yeah. Do that, MoJoe. Let me know how many there are there. That'd be very interesting. So that was cool. And yeah, you become a celebrity, dear niece, where, this morning I woke up to text between your mom and your uncle, your other uncle. And I guess he just found out yesterday or this morning that you had contracted it. And so he was all concerned, of course, his uncle should be. But, your mom and I put him at ease very quickly that you're one of the lucky ones where your physiology was one that could resist it. I'm going to assume that you had exactly the same virus that has killed tens of thousands of people. I don't know how many, but you had the same virus. It wasn't like you got a slightly different version of it that just didn't hit you as hard, You had the same virus. It was the same infection.
Yeah, I'm really lucky that, I was, able to just be out of commission for a little bit, not for a really long time or permanently. It's just a bunch of factors, my age and, my health and all that stuff. So I'm glad I have those things because you can't buy them.
Yeah.
Well, and it could be genetics, They're thinking it might be a genetic thing.
Well, CoJoe comes from a sturdy breed, sturdy line.
Good genetics. I like it.
But so tell me, you mentioned next Friday is when you're going to venture out for the first time, barring anything unforeseen. So does that mean that'll be your first day back to work and school or anything? Or not school, of course, but
just working from home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm working from home. My office is actually shut down right now, so we're all just working from home. But hoping everything, assuming everything's going well for me, I want to go down and visit my parents.
Down in southern Nevada.
Yeah, I want to go see them. I haven't seen them for a couple of weeks, maybe a month or two. At least a couple of weeks. But yeah, I'd like to go see them and visit the cats. And
so,
that's my plan.
I wonder what would happen if you went in and got tested again. Wouldn't that kind of
I don't know.
make you feel a little bit better if you went and got tested and it was negative, and then you could really go visit your parents without? Because if you're still have the virus.
Yep.
No one really knows if you're contagious or not unless that virus isn't in there. It's not, you can't detect it. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I can understand why you don't want to get spears jabbed up your nose again, and maybe they won't do it for you. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would love to be able to go get tested again. I'm not sure that they're using tests now on
that
people
way.
that are symptomatic.
The only reason
looking into it, and oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the only reason I bring it up is because I saw this YouTube clip of this couple that was on one of those cruise ships that got anchored off Japan, right? And so the Japanese doctors took them off the ship, put them in the hospital, and they weren't allowed to leave that hospital until they tested negative. This guy was jamming. What do you call those sticks? Chopsticks up his nose with a swab to try and clean it, to try and clean his nose out, so he would test negative. So he was trying to help the test along, kind of thing. But until he tested negative, they wouldn't let him leave.
Yeah, I think I read somewhere that most places, if you're hospitalized for COVID symptoms, and because you have it, you cannot leave the hospital until you test negative twice within 24 hours.
That sounds right.
Okay.
So I think that's why people have been stuck in hospitals.
Makes sense. It does. It kind of begs the question from somebody ignorant of medical science like I am, is that they the majority, if not all of these tests, are simply swabbing up into your sinuses and then testing the sample they get there. Well, what if the coronavirus just goes, unlucky, it just goes right past your sinus, it doesn't get caught up in any mucus or sticky membranes, goes right into your lungs. So your nose doesn't have it, but your lungs do. is that even possible? I don't know. Does it have to be, if it's in your lungs, does it also have to be present in your sinus test?
I'm guessing yes.
I don't know.
I'm guessing yes.
I would guess, yes, but I have no evidence to back that up.
Yeah, me either. Just a guess.
Yeah.
I would assume, yeah.
It's a good question. That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder, false positives or true negatives or whatever you want to call them.
Sure.
Yeah. I was looking into it the other day, or yesterday, I guess, about donating plasma at the Red Cross for recovered COVID patients. Apparently, they really are encouraging people to do that because there's antibodies or something in your plasma that can help current COVID patients that are, in the hospital.
That's cool.
So, as soon as I'm all good, that'll be my first stop, I think. I thought that was super interesting.
Yeah, but did they say you have to test negative before you come in and give blood, or did they give you any guidelines?
I haven't looked into it much further. It did say that you can't make an appointment how you normally would make an appointment to donate blood or plasma at the Red Cross, which is, you just book it and show up. Instead, they ask that you fill out a form specifically stating, like, hey, I had COVID. I've since recovered. I'm sure there's more information on it. They want to know, and they want to make sure that you come in recovered and not sick.
Right.
But I haven't, filled out the form yet.
Well, you talked about donating plasma. MoJoe and I have a friend who's doing that now. It's CoJoe. In fact, he used to be one of our frequent guests or frequent hosts on the CoJoe's podcast. And he moved into a new apartment recently, and he lives now in the basement of a home owned by a young married couple, and the woman, the wife, is involved in the medical field. I don't know in what capacity, other than she suggested to him, donating plasma is a way to make some really good side money, some good extra money a month. I think he said it was like $500 a month or something like that. Yeah, it was, yeah. And he described the process is they extract a certain amount of blood, I don't know, a pint or half a pint, whatever it is. Then they put it into some apparatus, and it takes out the plasma, and then they pump the blood back into your arm. So you're really, it's not like donating blood where you're down a pint and you have to go eat and sleep to get it back. They pump it right back in after they get the plasma out of the blood. So
I could be wrong. Oh, go ahead. Oh,
no, your turn.
I could be wrong, but I was at the Red Cross a couple of months ago donating blood, and that's, pretty like a 20-minute process. It's not a too long process, but I think I was watching people donate plasma, or maybe it was platelets, but they were hooked up and they had movie screens in front of them. So it's like a 2-hour process to get, to get all the whatever they need out of the blood and put the blood back in and do that whole thing.
Okay. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, platelets and plasma. I have no idea what those really mean,
Same here.
you say the word. You say the word plasma, and I think of like Star Trek. There's some plasma cloud that they have to go fly the ship through, or something like that. I have no idea what that is. But I do remember about a year ago when it was like 2 years ago. My hip was really starting to give me some problems. I'm getting to that age. And a couple of my friends have
You've been at that age, but
I've been at that age for a while, and it's been bugging me. It's kind of been coming and going, but it was about 2 years ago where it really got bad, where I could barely get out of my car because it hurt so much. And so I went and I consulted with the same surgeon who replaced CoJoe's hip. And he said, well, you might, yours doesn't seem all that bad. You might want to investigate stem cell therapy. And so I went and talked to a stem cell guy. I have no idea if he's a medical doctor or if you even need a medical degree. But he said, what we'll do is, this has a pretty good chance of helping you out, is what we take some of your blood out, then we extract the plasma from your blood, and then we mix that with stem cells from umbilical cords that are harvested after a live birth. And then we inject that. And he described the process. It sounded awful. He says, we make about 30 injections into your hip at once, all at once, with this tiny little needle that goes right into your hip joint. And then they inject this mixture of the plasma and the stem cells, the umbilical stem cells, and just hope that my body accepts it and starts working with it and rebuilds, I guess, the cartilage around the joint or whatever it is. But like I said, it comes and goes. I'm really not having any issues right now. I'm getting around just fine. It's been a while since I felt old, shall I say. It's been a while since I felt really. What about you? MoJoe, you play hockey once a week. Do you have any joint issues that are recurring or chronic?
Not really. I mean, I played tennis for a lot of years and my knees were getting pretty banged up, so I stopped playing tennis. But the hockey is really a lot easier on my knees. You don't have that impact and sudden change of direction.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really don't have, my knees don't bother me much anymore, and my hips have always been decent, so no, nothing to complain about.
Well, right on. Okay. Let's see. Any last questions for CoJoe here? I'm trying to think of one. Everything's looking up, looking positive. You're one of the 98.9% that's going to get through this just fine. May I ask you one? You said a few days ago, or maybe a week ago or so, you did develop kind of a fever. How high was it like 100, 101? How high did you get?
It bounced between 100 and 102 was the highest it ever registered. So it was somewhere in between there, kind of bouncing back and forth.
And how long did that last? Like a day, 2 days, 3 days?
That lasted about 2.5 days. I believe it started on a Friday, and then it was gone by like Sunday evening.
Okay. And like Chris Cuomo, the CNN anchor, he has his show. He has it also, and he's quarantined himself like you have. And he said his fevers got so bad he started having fever dreams where his dead father would sit at the foot of his bed, and it was like a waking dream. You didn't have anything like that? You were able to sleep through it, or
not that I know of. But yeah, it didn't get that bad. My biggest thing was mostly just body aches. My body just hurt really bad, and I'd get random chills. But yeah, fever was okay, no cough. I think I skirted some of the worst symptoms, which is good news.
That's great. Yeah. Well, young and healthy. I mean, we've all read some of the headlines where, like a 17-year-old has died from it, or maybe even younger. And I think I read one where an infant had died from it. But, but that's what I kind of like about the response that I've seen, not just America and my community, but around the world, is people, this one is different. This one hasn't scared people that they're going to die if they go out and get it. This one has alerted them you don't want to spread it. That's the big one. You're not at it. The average person out there is not at a huge risk. The risk is you spreading to somebody who is at risk. And I love the response that I've seen. And I was at the liquor store yesterday, and I was keeping 6 feet, and it took me 20 minutes just to get into the liquor store. So people are taking it seriously, and I'm glad most of us.
Yeah, well, that's good too. And there's so many people out there that are immunocompromised or have, serious health issues that you would never know by looking at them. And I think that's why it's important that people just assume that, like, you can't spread it to anyone. Because, people could have some health conditions that, could make them really compromised if they were to get sick. You just never know. So, yeah, I think it's smart that people are trying not to spread it to anyone.
So the new recommendation is mask wearing. They recommend that everyone going out wear masks. Are you guys going to wear masks if you go out? Did you see a lot of masks at the liquor store?
Yeah, I've got a scarf that I wrapped around my head, and I went in there looking like I was going to hold up the place.
Wow.
But,
good for you.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Go ahead, CoJoe. Nope, your turn, CoJoe.
Oh, I was just gonna say I was gonna try and make some at home. I have a sewing machine and some fabric. I was gonna try and make some. Just trying to figure out what good material for a filter. And just hand them out to some people I know. I thought that might be a good craft.
Yeah, that'd be epic.
Yeah. Good way to stay busy. I did my research on that too. Is wearing like a bandana mask or a scarf as a mask or anything really does not protect you.
Right. You were telling me that it's like a BB going through a tennis net. And I heard this analogy from the mayor of L.A. on Bill Maher's show saying it's more like a big fullbacker going through the door, and if you have more than one fullbacker trying to go through the door, well, then it slows some of them down. And I'm like, well, that's quite a bit different than a BB going through a tennis net. I wonder which one's more accurate.
That's a good question. I'm not sure. But I watched Thunderfoot on YouTube give an example of it, and he showed, the width of one coronavirus. That often they'll come in groups, they'll stick together, so they're bigger. But the width of just one coronavirus is about a micron, or a little bit less than 1 micron. And the width of your average scarf, the porousness, I guess is the right word, of a scarf, those openings are like 10 to 20 microns wide. So the virus can go right through that. It's like it's not even there. But what you're doing is protecting other people. You're not really protecting yourself from getting infected. But if you are infected and you have a sneeze or cough that you're covered, then the scarf is going to capture all of the, what do you want to call it, the ejecta coming out of your nose and mouth, and it'll grab that and hopefully keep the virus localized to your face protection.
Yeah, I also read, I spoke to my mom about it, but apparently, too, one of the biggest things about people wearing face masks is they don't do it correctly. Even when you have the medical grade ones. But if you touch the front of it, you need to throw the mask away or you need to sanitize it because apparently, if you touch it with your hands, suddenly everything you're trying to block is now on the outside of it, and you're just going to get it in, and you're going to rub your eyes, and it's all over your face all of a sudden. So, I don't know. I think that's something people should think about when they are wearing face masks, whether they're, fabric or surgical. If they're surgical, donate them to the hospital, but if you are wearing them, to keep in mind and be mindful not to touch them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I watched a nurse, an emergency room nurse, give a little demonstration on how quickly germs spread. And, germs is a very generic term, but she just showed, you go to the grocery store, even if you're wearing rubber gloves and you touch your cell phone, you grab a bag of chips and decide you don't want them and you put them back. And somebody calls you on your cell phone and you grab it again and then you touch the shopping cart and you're in. It doesn't matter that you're wearing these rubber gloves, these protective gloves, that the virus is there, and it will spread to anything those rubber gloves touch, including the face and your credit card and your door handles, and it's just insidious and nasty stuff. So other than that, then, we have cause to celebrate. I believe we will have a jam session here, MoJoe, I'm going to guess in the next 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, a month at the worst. Going to have a little reunion jam. It's been a long time. When was our last jam? I can't remember.
I don't know because I wasn't there, but man, that's pretty optimistic of you. You think within 4 weeks we're going to be jamming again, huh?
Yeah, maybe it is a little bit pie in the sky, but talking to CoJoe, I'm just feeling good about people recovering, and she's got my spirits up high.
Wow, good. Yeah, good. Keep good thought.
Yeah.
Glad I could lift some spirits.
Indeed. Yeah. Well, you're one of the vast majority who's going to be just fine through this whole thing, and I wonder if it confers immunity on you for the rest of your life. Are these bodies or antibodies going to be in your system for the rest of your life? So you don't have to worry about this strain of the coronavirus ever again.
Wow, that'd be really interesting to know. I'd have to do some research on that, but man, that should be nice.
I'm not sure they do know yet, but we will know eventually, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
They will, absolutely, yeah. Well, I did learn why they named it COVID-19. Are you guys familiar with the nomenclature, why they named it?
I think I know where the 19 came from, but other than that.
I don't know.
From where, MoJoe?
The year 2019 is when the virus jumped to humans,
exactly. I guess. Yeah, this isn't like the 19th iteration that we've had of this. I mean, the coronavirus, we've known about this family of viruses for a long time. I don't know how long. But it's just this is a new one that started attacking humans. And so it became novel. And originally it was called the 2019 novel coronavirus.
Mm.
And so they shortened it all to COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Of course, if you go to the wrong websites, one of them said that COVID stands for Chinese orchestrated virus infecting dissidents.
Oh, you're kidding.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, it was. It's just ridiculous. Just sad and ridiculous.
Yep, just sad.
Well, the Spanish flu back in 1918 should have been named the Kansas flu. That's the first cases in the world were detected in an army base in Kansas. So rightfully, it should have been the Kansas flu.
Yep, and just like China, we tried to subvert it. We tried to keep it quiet, just like China did. And,
Yeah.
Just history repeating itself, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry?
It's history. It's history repeating itself again. It happens in a country.
Yes,
that country keeps it quiet.
Yeah.
Everyone else kind of gets surprised, and then they scramble, and then some take it seriously, some don't. Same deal.
Yeah. Well, back in 1918, though, when the first wave of the Spanish flu hit, it was a little bit more understandable why a lot of countries kept it quiet. Excuse me, I got hiccups again. And this is something I got wrong. I got my date, my timeline wrong. Is World War II was still raging when the Spanish flu first hit.
No.
I'm wrong?
You're wrong. You said World War II.
Well, yeah.
We were at the tail end of World War I, or it had just wrapped up, or something like that. Yeah.
That's right. World War I ended November 11th, 1918, and this thing hit a few months before that. And so the reason this was called the Spanish flu is because Spain was the first country on the planet that started reporting all these cases.
That's what I understood.
This incredible pandemic. Yeah. And so I can kind of understand why America and a lot of the belligerents did not start spreading this information. They didn't want to look like they're being ravaged and they're weak and that it might diminish the war effort. So that's kind of understandable.
Okay.
What's the excuse today? What's the excuse for China today if China did suppress a lot of this information and how bad it was and how easily it spread? What's their excuse for that today? We're not in a world war.
No.
Things are going pretty well. The economy was going very well for our country and theirs, and it's just.
However,
that I believe just.
We're talking about a communist country, and they're always doing that. We're so great. Praise the ruler. He's number one. He's a demigod or something like that. So that's one reason why they cover it up. And the other reason I'm thinking is probably because it's happened before. They've launched other viruses out of their wet markets. I think this is the second one in the past, 20 years, I'm guessing. So that's another reason why they want to keep it quiet, maybe.
Well, if I may alter some of the words you just used right there, that they've launched other viruses from wet markets. That, let's say they have suffered the creation of other viruses due to their wet markets and suppressed that information. Not like they launched it. That sounded a little bit conspiratorial.
I'm sorry. Yeah. You're right. I mean, honestly, they're just trying to. I mean, on one hand, I think those wet markets are there to try and feed the masses, right? Because they've got population like you wouldn't believe. I couldn't believe when I heard that Wuhan, China, where this virus they feel like it came from, has like 11 million people in it. It's like the size of New York City or larger.
Wow.
Yeah, and if you see the pictures of it at night with the lights on, it's a beautiful, beautiful city. It really is.
Oh, yeah.
And so
indeed.
why these wet markets exist, I mean, yeah. And then another theory I heard on one of the YouTube videos I watched was that, you know, they say, it came from bats is their best guess right now, and people are going like, why do they eat bats? Well, it's not. The poor people don't eat the bats. It's like the rich people, the people that think it has some special superpower or something like that, you know? So it may not even be the fact that they're trying to feed the poor people why this virus was created. It might be because they were trying to satisfy the rich people and give them their weird stuff that they're asking for, demanding.
Well, that's reasonable. That is. And, you know, it might have been a pangolin or a king cobra or, you know, who knows?
Well, that's just it. They got these
started.
weird animals stacked on top of each other, and shit happens, you know?
But you raise a good point, too, and it changed my thinking a little bit is, you know, my first thought, this is about a week ago, before we knew CoJoe was a victim, and we were talking about these wet markets and saying, you know, when this is all said and done and we return to normal and, you know, countries start negotiating treaties and this and that, are we going to put some pressure on China to go in and clean up these wet markets, put some standards and rules in place? You know, you've got to have sterilized butcher blocks and you can't stack them the way you do, and you can't. But when you're dealing with a 1.3 billion people, you know, how are you going to police that? How can you possibly police every wet market? And not just China, but Indonesia and Taiwan and Bangkok and, you know, all these places.
And that's a good point.
How are you going to possibly?
That's a good point. And here's another way to look at it. If it is the rich people that are demanding this stuff, well, they carry a lot of influence. Even in a communist government, they carry influence and they can buy favors and stuff like that. Oh, you don't want to close down this wet market. That's where I get my bat feet from. You know,
exactly. That's where I get my
a possibility too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my shark fins or whatever they think is going to give them that extra boost.
Yeah,
you know?
Well, and you know, powdered rhinoceros horn is supposed to be good for impotence. So, you know, where am I going to get that?
None of it's been proven, man. This is crazy. People believe weird stuff.
Indeed. Well, let's say. I've got nothing more. CoJoe, do you have any parting words for us and some more inspiration about how well you're doing?
I got one for you.
I'm doing good. And you have a question?
A question. Yes. Are you feeling up to cleaning another garage? Because I have one. I'll practice social distancing.
Oh, no.
If you're feeling up for a garage, that's great news, and I've got a garage. I'm just teasing you.
So, CoJoe, what would you say was the worst night of your symptoms? I mean, you got tested just last Tuesday. You were confirmed. So sometime before that, what was the worst night or day, or like 10-hour period, and what was going on?
I would say on Friday and Saturday of last week, I was feeling that was probably the worst it was. That's when I finally decided to get tested and then consequently the test. But yeah, I had really bad chills, but I was also hot and my body just hurt. Like my knees hurt, my back hurt. I couldn't really do much, but just lay there motionless, and even that was exhausting. No appetite. The thought of certain foods just made me sick. I actually had to switch my shampoo to a different one because my shampoo was too pungent.
Oh wow!
But that was pretty much the worst of it. Was those 2 days? I would say.
So. Well, you know, that raises a little bit of humor in my head because when you're feeling the aches and pains and stuff like that, I mean, if that happens to MoJoe and me, you just think, well, we're old. You know, that's to be expected.
It's
you know,
normal.
We have no idea. It's normal. It's just daily life, pretty much. You know, I go up and down
Not looking forward to that.
Well, it's a privilege denied to many people, CoJoe.
Yeah,
so,
true.
And always remember what Keith Richards, the guitarist for the Rolling Stones, remember what he said about growing old. Nobody wants to grow old, but you don't want to die young either. So the trick is to grow old as slowly as you can. It's good advice. I kind of live by it.
That was good advice. Yeah, I like that. But yeah, well, thanks for having me on the podcast again.
Of course, and we're gonna follow up with you again. What I'm most interested in now, dear niece, is finding out like a week or 2 or 3 from now. Have you been conferred total immunity? You don't have to worry about contracting this again. You're no longer infectious, and just going to see what your life is like. I mean, did they tell you? Can they perform a test on you to say you will not infect anybody else? Did they confirm that with you?
They didn't confirm that with me. I do know that if I was to get a test and test negative, then, I don't have it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I don't think the test really being given out to people like me who are recovering and weren't hospitalized. They're, reserving those as much as they can for people that are symptomatic.
Because the amateur hack research I've done on this, I really couldn't find anything that definitively said that you're immune. Once you get over it and you're done with it, then you are totally immune for the rest of your life, and you can't infect anybody else. I've just gotten kind of mixed messages on that one.
I would.
Go ahead. No,
I would just. I'd be interested to know if it's like chickenpox, where you get it once and you're pretty much immune from chickenpox for the rest of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's how it works, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any definitive answer on that yet.
Yeah, and it would seem that if President Trump really wanted to bolster his reelection chances and to put a lot of Americans at ease, he would get behind the podium and say, we are now going to put some resources into developing a new test that for former COVID-19 patients to say, okay, you're immune and you can't do any more. Give us some assurance that once you've been through it and you've recovered, then you're fine. You can't infect anybody else and you'll never get it again. If he came out and said something like that behind the podium, that would help his chances a lot. And I despise the man. I'm saying it would. If he said that, I would. Most of us do.
Oh, no.
Well, before we have MoJoe, before we ask an outro from him. No, actually, I do the outro from the remote.
I just start the music. I've got one more for. See, my wife has a couple of friends that have symptoms, and we don't know yet if they have the virus or not. How are your circle of friends doing? Are they still good?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear the last part. How are the what doing?
How are your circle of friends?
Oh, they've been good. I actually had a good friend of mine come by the other day, and she dropped some soup off on my front porch, and
nice.
She and her fiance talked to me through the window, which was very nice of them.
That's cool.
I could have cried seeing another person.
Oh my goodness!
But yeah, my friends have been good so far. The person I traveled with, they've been doing good too. They haven't had any symptoms or felt sick at all, so I'm really relieved and happy about that.
Great. That's great.
Yes, the young man you traveled to New York with, did he get tested?
He did not. However, I did tell him a list of my specific symptoms in case he starts feeling even a little bit, a little bit that way. I wanted him to be on high alert, but so far, yeah, he's been doing great, which I'm very happy about. I don't want him to be sick.
That's great. And he's taking precautions too, I'm sure, like you have. Is that okay? Wonderful.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, good then. Good. Yeah, MoJoe, I think that, the the Attorney General, the Surgeon General came out this morning and said that the next few days, the next week maybe, is going to be like our Pearl Harbor moment, where it's we might brace ourselves for some serious upticks in infections and deaths and overwhelming the medical system and things like that. But I got to tell you, talking to CoJoe and reading reports of how many people have had it and recovered, I'm not going to. Of course, I wouldn't know, but we might be on the downside of this, or we might have another week or two of bad news. But I think there might be a light at the end of the tunnel. There just might be.
Yeah, it's really all you can hope for.
Indeed. Yeah. Okay, then. Well, after this, when we conclude and MoJoe gives us an outro, do you guys want to spend maybe 10, 15 minutes investigating this Jam Kazam thing? I'd love to play some music with you guys. It's driving me nuts not being able to play music with my friends.
Yeah, we can try it out.
Do you have time, MoJoe? Do you have another 10, 20 minutes?
I think I could probably manage that.
Oh, very nice. Very cool. Let's start that music, and I will do my best to outro us properly. Thanks again for joining the CoJoe podcast. I had a little update from my dear niece, who we have now named CoJoe, and I don't think she'll ever escape that nickname. And thank you again so much for joining, and we'll see you again here soon on the CoJoe podcast.